listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome into the GM Shuffle. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I am Geoff Schwartz, 8 years National Football League alongside Marty Hurney, 30 years now for front offices, and we have our first show, really, of the official offseason, and we're going to go over quarterbacks today. Which teams need quarterbacks, which teams are set, which teams might have short-term answers, where we're looking in the draft, we're looking at free agency. We'll do this throughout the offseason until we get to the NFL draft, and then we'll start talking about roster construction and free agency, all those things that are very important to the National Football League this time of year. Marty, how did you survive first weekend, no football since August?
Well, really, general manager Geoff, it never stops. You're going. It's always something. Every time you go and you put your head on the pillow and you think I can rest, there's 1,000 things going through your mind that you have to do. Right now, basically, I think most teams, and every team does things differently, but we would have brought the scouts into the facility this weekend and started going over the character comments for players on the board. So what happens is, say early, mid-December, the scouts come in after going through all their schools before the All-Star games, and we basically put a board together, the initial board. And when I say that is, the board is basically constructed with the positions at the top, the rounds on the side. And what you do is you start by stacking the board vertically. So you start with the quarterbacks and you go down and you put them in the rank that you think the scouts have them in. And again, this is a very initial part of the process. Then later on, after everything's done, you'll go horizontally and stack the board. But right now, it's just vertical by position. So what the scouts do when they're in here this week is they will read over all the character information, character and medical. We want to know if we need to put a character tag on them or a medical tag on them through the process. We don't talk a lot of football about it. You might mention a thing or two, but basically we're trying to identify the players who might slip because of either character concerns or medical concerns. Then after about 2 or 3 days of meeting with the scouts, the coaches will come in, the head coach, the coordinator, and then each position coach per the position we're talking about. And we will go over the list for them. We'll give them a book of all the players at the combine. We'll go over a list of them. And again, go through all the character and the medical stuff. And then we'll basically talk a little bit about how we see them fitting in their skill set. But just enough to give the college coaches time to go up to the combine and be familiar with the players that they're going to look at and interview.
So we'll talk more about some of the combine processes, obviously, during combine week here pretty soon. It's coming up very soon. But a couple follow-ups here, Marty, for you on the character tag. So I guess you hear things from college coaches, I would imagine. Have you done background yet on like teammate comments or hometown or friends and family? Is it just right now sort of just general character things you've heard about certain players?
No, this is what you do when you go in the schools and your scouts. And then that's why I found it so valuable. You go in, you talk to people, listen, if you have a good scouting staff and, a lot of staffs have some young guys and it takes time, but the staffs that have guys who have been there in the same area for a while, obviously develop relationships and they have done their character background work on each player. And it does include talking to how many coaches, family members, whatever you can do. You talk to as many people as possible and bring that information. And that's why, when it comes down to it, I always wanted to lean toward the area scouts feel for the person, that kind of thing, because, he's been there. He's been in the school 2 or 3 times. He's talked to the coaches and some of the students and other players and gotten a feel for the kid. And they should have a very good feel for the kid's personality, reliability, how much he loves football. So that really should be brought to the table by the college scout.
So the character tag is only if it's bad, right? You just assume the character is good, and if otherwise, then you note that. And then are there different different grades for character? Is there like we can't draft this guy or like some concerns,
Yeah.
but depending on how good he is, we can avoid it? Are there specific marks for that? Or you just put down a C for character and just evaluate it as it goes?
Yeah, right now we would put a yellow C on his card, and that can come off during the process the more information you get. But yeah, to your question, now I do think you talk about the positives too. Like if a Luke Kuechly comes on the list, you're talking about his leadership and how smart he is and that kind of stuff. So you do talk about the good characters as well, and especially the ones that you think should be bumped up because of that. But basically what you're trying to do is just give everybody a feel for the individual that they're going to see.
And medical right now, obviously you haven't done the combine yet. So it's just based off of your chart
Right.
from college football, correct?
Yes, it is. But what you are doing is you're gathering a list of you can bring in 30 players to your facility, right? And basically that list should start with people that you want your own doctors to see and maybe do tests on. So for medical reasons, or if they have a character question, do you question they love football? Do they have they had some issues in the past? You start your list with those guys, and then obviously you fill it out with guys that you really like and want your coaches to get to know. But I think that is this is a very critical part because it really does the character of the people that you draft is so important to building your team. And I think we took pride in almost every year, every time we would bring the rookie class in for minicamp or whatever, we would always get comments from our equipment guys, our trainers, how great great of guys they were and how much they love ball. And that's what you're looking for at the start because you can build on that if the character's right, if they love the game, you can build on their skill set.
I do think I made it so long in the NFL because people liked me. Like I think that does go a long way. Um, if your character is a problem, eventually your talent will diminish enough to where your character concerns outweigh your talent. And being a mean spirited person, being someone no one can handle, that eats away. As soon as you are not good enough, you're gone, right? I mean, keeping someone around
Right.
that's a good teammate and a good person, probably more likely to happen than not. I mean, of course, you got to be good. You don't make the NFL just by being a good person, but I do think that being a good person certainly helps your success in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to win as much as I did, right? And that's what you're
Yeah.
looking for as a general manager. We're all trying to put food on the table and take care of our families and be successful and ultimately win a Super Bowl. And that's what you want is guys who want it as bad as you do. And it's a part of the process that sometimes gets overridden by after the combine and everybody gets enamored with athletic ability and but I think that the key the reasons I like going to schools and the reasons that you listen to scouts are they go to schools during the season. They see how they interact with their teammates. They see how they act when things don't go right at practice and how they respond to coaching. And I think there's so many things that are important to see guys during the season in school. You really can get taken off the path a little bit on the combine because that's the first time the coaches have seen them and athletic ability. If a guy runs a fast 40, everybody gets all caught up with it. But I said, we don't have a track meet at halftime. This game's not played in shorts. It's played in pants and shoulder pads. And I think that that's the thing you always have to keep in mind as you're going through all this process.
So we will cover more of all what goes into the combine process, what goes into the coaches part of the combine, your responsibility, everything that happens during that week next week, Marty. But there was some NFL news today with a roster move here. Jordan Schultz reported Dolphins have released Bradley Chubb, their pass rusher, and they're going to incur a $20 million cap hit to get rid of the veteran Chubb. Remember, Miami has a new general manager and new head coach, and this is the week 1 week after the Super Bowl when the veterans start getting released. I got released by the Giants during this week. They called me and said, "Hey, we're releasing you." I kind of knew it was coming. I felt it was coming. I did ask the general manager at the time for just a common courtesy. I'm in my 9th year. Just can you tell me why you're releasing me? Give me something. No answer, Marty. Nothing. You could talk to us when you get to New York. I got to New York, no one was home, and so I got released without talking to a single person. Like I was a big free agent signing when they signed me, and 2 years later they released me with no more than like a 30-second phone call. So that's the business side of it. Sometimes I just wish teams are more honest about it. Maybe the Dolphins are honest with Bradley Chubb. But why this week, Marty, does it feel like this is when the veterans start getting released?
Well, this is when you can start releasing players. The waiver wire kicks back on. And Geoff, I always believe that if you know a guy's not going to be there with you, then it's the right thing to do to tell you immediately so you can start looking for another job. And I would like to think, Geoff, that I would have never done it that way. I think that you owed people respect to sit down with them face to face and tell them, number one, as soon as the decision was made, and number two, just how much you appreciated them, and just be upfront. And sometimes, players are looking for reasons like what was wrong with me, and sometimes it's just how the roster fits and what moves you had to make. But I do believe that sitting down in person with the player is just the right thing to do. And we've talked about it before. I flew out to L.A. to talk to Deshaun Foster, and Miami to talk to Greg Olson. I went down to Charlotte from Indy to talk to Jonathan Stewart. And listen, guys don't want to, might not like what you have to say, but they do appreciate the fact that you're up front. Now, the only reason you have to wait is if you're doing a June 1st release with the player because of salary cap, you have to wait until the first day of the league year to announce that. So that might be tricky where you've decided to cut a player and have to wait until the first day of the league year. But other than that, you can tell them right away, and I think it's the right thing to do.
I feel like it's been a whole episode explaining this post-June 1st cut. I've never understood any of that before. And we could talk about that in a whole episode, Marty. I don't want to bore people to death, but you can release a player now, as you mentioned, with a cap hit immediately now, or designate them post-June 1st, and you could change sort of your cap. But let's talk about quarterbacks next. Which teams need them? Which teams have them? And really, the teams that need them, where do we go from here? With that GM Show presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
All right, back on the GM Shuffle. Let's talk quarterbacks. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about teams that are set for the short term and the long term, so no need to improve now, and the teams that must improve and really the options they have. So, Marty, I want to start with the easiest thing here, right? Let's talk about teams that are set for the long term. I'm going to list them out to you, and you tell me if they should be moved to a different category, okay? They might. Okay. You might disagree. Buffalo, right? Josh Allen, set for the long term.
Yep.
Patriots, Drake May, set for long term. Anything that you saw in the Super Bowl worry you long term?
No, he was hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was way more hurt.
I mean, that's my take on that. But no, not at all.
By the way, you said on the show last week that you saw him pregame and thought he didn't look right. I went and watched the NFL films mic'd up, and a couple of takeaways. One is that Seattle knew they were kicking ass, and New England knew they were losing. That felt that looked very stark when you saw that. Players know, by the way. And two, Drake May did not look comfortable at all. You mentioned it. He just looked from the start. Mike Vrabel said, "Look, dude, just smile, man. Just smile." Like he looked off. And I agree with you. Nothing in the future to worry about. The Baltimore Ravens, correct. Set with Lamar Jackson. You agree there, I think?
Yep.
Okay. Bengals and Joe Burrow. Jags and Trevor Lawrence. Texans with CJ Stroud. I put the Denver Broncos obviously in here. Los Angeles, both LA teams, the Chargers and the Rams, set. The Chiefs are set. I want to skip a couple. I put a couple in here. I'm going to skip for later. Just for that. Dallas, right? Dallas appears set with Jalen Daniels. I mean, with the Dak. Washington, set with Jalen Daniels. The Giants, are they in a... We'll talk about them in a second. The Packers, long-term, right? They're set, I believe. You agree there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Florida.
The Niners and the Seahawks. Okay. There we go. We're done with the set teams. I think it's more fun to talk about the teams that Short term. So here's what I have like short term. Okay.
Can I ask you a couple
Yes.
questions? Can I ask you a couple questions on your long term?
Yes.
You comfortable with the Texans long term with CJ after I really had a hard time, Geoff, watching him in that playoff game and
Yeah.
and just the reaction to it, and it worried me if that was something to worry about in the future. Does that worry you at all, or are you set with
You know what? Here's what we have. Here's what we're gonna do. I can control X, cut the Texans, put them right in that short term right here. There we go. They're in the short term. They're in the short term, Marty. Set for needs here. No, this is what we're doing. This. So let's talk Houston
And
real
then
quick.
on
Marty.
Washington,
Yeah.
on Washington, this is a very key year for Jaden Daniels. He's got to prove he can stay healthy, right? I mean, because the
Yeah.
only concern about him coming out into the draft was his thin frame. And he gets up very quickly when he's hit. He's very resilient, but he needs to be able to stay healthy for most of the season. And when he is, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league.
So let's talk Texans, because we'll start with teams sort of set for the short term, and these are teams obviously have a quarterback at least for this season and potentially longer. I'm sort of confounded by Stroud, because if you recall when he came out of Ohio State, there were a lot of questions about what Stroud we were getting, right? Was it the one that seemed not very mobile, not wanting to do more than basically in the pocket, and sort of if things are not on structure, a little bit off, right? I mean, he wasn't bad, but a little bit off, Marty. Or was it the guy who played against Georgia in that playoff game, who's unbelievable? You remember that Georgia game? He was scrambling. He's making otherworldly plays. Then he gets drafted in the NFL, and we basically saw that in year one. We saw that version, the Georgia game version of J.J. Stroud. Since that time, we saw the other version, right? A guy who's not very confident, it appears, a guy who's not very mobile, a guy who doesn't really, first read not there, second read hard to find, the consistency's not there. And so the question is, Marty, is that like, which version are you going to get from him? And I got to imagine they still think they're getting the best of him, but your point, I think, is very fair that for 2 years, he's basically gone backwards.
This is one of the battles I've always gone through, Geoff. Some of the things you mentioned about, downfield, going through his progressions, does he see everything? I did not have him as high as he was drafted second overall. So when he got drafted, I was saying, gosh, I didn't see that. And then the first year I said, I must have been wrong. I missed on him. But now he's showing those things that were concerns. So, can he be a franchise quarterback? Most definitely. And I think he's at a great place to develop, but he needs to keep improving. And I just, the look on his face, the way he just kind of melted down a little bit in that playoff game worried me to an extent where, obviously he's still your starter, and you hope that he's good enough to be able to get you to the Super Bowl. But I still think there are a couple questions on C.J. Stroud.
So the Texans have to pick up his fifth-year option, I believe, in a few weeks, if I'm correct on that. And he's up for an extension after year 3. It feels like they're not going to do that now. I would imagine they're not going to pay him right now. It gets more expensive. Obviously, he plays very well. On other teams, set for the short term. So Washington, we agree, big year for Jane Daniels, but right now, set for the short term. The Carolina Panthers, are they going to pay Bryce Young? It feels like to me that Bryce Young is going to be in that group of quarterbacks that you pay $60 million a year to. And like by year 2 of that extension, you're like, oh boy, this is not going like we thought. Am I wrong for thinking that, Marty?
Certainly are questions about him, and it's always going to be his size, Geoff. People are always going to have to get over his size, but I do think he's got a lot of abilities to be a top half of the league quarterback. So what you have to decide with him, with C.J. Stroud, with guys that are going into their 4th year, you have to, by the spring, you have to decide whether you're going to put the franchise tag on them for the 5th year or not, to keep their rights for the 5th year. So, that's going to be everything I've read said they're going to tag him and they're going to put the franchise on him. I do think he's a good quarterback. Obviously, it's where you come into this league, how you come into this league sets the expectations. And because they traded up and traded so much to go up and get him, there are extremely high expectations for him. Is he ever going to be the best quarterback in the league? No, but I think he can be in the top half and is good enough to win with to get you to the Super Bowl if everything else around you is good enough.
Okay, so we agree on short term for the Panthers for now. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It feels like this is the last year of Baker Mayfield, correct, Marty? Like this is it. This is the last year. It's boom or bust. You either sort of make a deep postseason run or Mayfield and coaching staff is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we
definitely
that
coaching
feels like
staff. I mean, you'll have a new coaching staff for sure.
that feels like that actually out of all the options here, that feels like one of the simplest teams because that's just what it is. I think Tampa Bay is not even in the group of like, we're looking to draft a young quarterback to develop. I'm not sure they're even in that category right now. I think they're in like,
No.
we got to get someone to help us win now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're happy with Baker and they think he's got time left. And again, Baker, when he's at his best is very good, but a little bit like Jane Daniels, you do worry about him getting hurt because of the way he plays, his style of play and his size.
Okay. Here's a team I need to discuss with you, Marty, to put into the set for short term or set for long term. Ready? The Philadelphia Eagles. Is a long term or short term for Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if you asked this question this time last year, after they won the Super Bowl,
set for life.
Would you ask that question?
No.
So I'm going to go back to something Bobby Beathard taught me, and it's always stuck with me, is when evaluating players, when everything around them is going wrong, be very careful to negatively evaluate an individual. And I think I've got to apply that rule to Jalen Hurts this year. I everything around him, nothing was right. Everything was wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that he has proven that he is can be a win because quarterback in this league. He's won a Super Bowl. So I would have to say long term, and I could adjust at the end of next year, but I just think everything went wrong around him, Geoff, and I'm not going to bang him this year.
If you like what you're hearing here in the GM Shuffle, is even more VSiN Pro, betting splits, power and sharp analysis, all was $9.90 first month with VSiN.com/room. Check out all subscription options. Continue on the Eagles quickly, Marty. The reason why I put in short term is if Sirianni and the Eagles struggle this season, they're gone, right? Now, Howie Roseman will stay, but Sirianni will be gone. And a new coach simply chooses their quarterback, right? Now, if you go to Philly, maybe you don't get to choose your quarterback. Howie Roseman keeps him. But if they don't play well this year as a team, Jalen Hurts has probably not played very well, correct? And is he a guy that with the offensive line in flux, right? They have a new offensive line coach now. Is Lane going to retire? Is Dickinson going to retire? Is A.J. Brown going to be happy? I mean, you can have a situation where you have a first-year play caller, a third-year coach. It potentially doesn't go well. Does a new coach say, I'm out of the Jalen Hurts business. I don't want to be part of this. And like that's why the short term to me is at least an option for Philly. Is if things go poorly this season, he might not be a long-term answer because they have a new coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think Howie would say, where are we going to get one? And it is, that the head coach might not like him, but if he didn't, I'm not sure he's going to be their head coach after interviewing with Howie. So we'll see how that works out. I just think, Geoff, my thing is, you would never sell your house without somewhere to live, right? And if we're talking about getting rid of all these quarterbacks, you better make sure you got one. And I don't know where they're coming from.
Well, not this draft. We'll talk about this draft. Potentially next year. We say this, right? Just wait for next year. Wait for next season. I mean, that draft at least seems to have more of those guys. And we're going to talk about the teams here in just a few minutes that need quarterbacks. There are enough quarterbacks in the National Football League. So I'm kind of curious where these teams go here. But it does feel like if the Eagles, after this season, decide to go, look, they drafted the second round with Carson Wentz, right? I mean, they've done it before in this fashion. I'm curious if they do that again. We have some breaking news here with some roster. We'll talk about that in a second here. We'll finish up our quarterback discussion and talk about some other personnel decisions around the NFL. GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Well, we're back on the GM Shuffle. We'll talk about quarterbacks as we've been doing here in just a few minutes, but we have breaking news as we're recording right now. Tyreek Hill has been released by the Miami Dolphins, or will be released by the Dolphins. Marty touched on earlier, there's different days you can officially release players. With the release of Bradley Chubb earlier, it feels like Dolphins are sort of clearing out everyone that was brought in by the old staff, which makes sense. It happens all the time, guys. When a new staff comes in, a new coach, a new general manager, especially, they just get rid of everyone that they didn't bring in, start anew, Marty. Not surprising. Obviously, ended last season hurt, unfortunately. I would imagine his agent's first call is to Brett Veach and, hey, buddy, 1-year deal. Can I get back to Kansas City? How's this process work now for teams that see Tyreek Hill's been released?
Yeah, normally, and his agent probably had a feel for this, Jeff. So sometimes what happens is the agent will contact some teams that might be of interest to Tyreek Hill, where he wants to end up. So I think teams probably had an idea that this was going to happen. Obviously, Kansas City would be on his list. You know, a team like Buffalo that needs receivers. All these teams that playoff type teams that need receivers will definitely touch base with his agent if they already haven't. And again, the agent probably saw this coming, and there's probably been conversations with several teams. And I think that, it's almost like free agency for a player like this. You have to be aggressive. It will be a bidding war because there will be more than one team interested in him. It's just, again, it makes sense to you and I talk going back to Kansas City. I think they would be the favorites, but obviously anybody that offered them a financial deal that would be impossible to say no to would also be in place. So there's several teams that are in contention to make a run, and I think and they need a wide receiver, and I think that he's going to have several options.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think at some point in your career, Marty, he's made his money. Like, just take a decent deal and go be happy, Kansas City, right? Like, go play with a quarterback you like. Go play.
Never heard that.
What do you mean?
Two things I know. Most of the time when I called a player to talk to him and he wasn't there, he was either at church or working out. And and we always used to laugh when we were trying to re-sign one of our own free agents saying, oh, he wants to be here, we're fine. Not true. You know what? If somebody comes with a financial package that is much better in Kansas City's, that's great. Kansas City was great to me, thanks, but I'm going over.
Well,
here.
I get that, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference what the Chiefs are going to offer in Buffalo. Like, I think if it's a couple $1 million, you just go back to Kansas City and be happy, then go to Buffalo. That's my opinion. It never works out that way. You're right. I'm wrong. You're right. And it never works out that way. But that, in theory, I think it should sometimes. We've seen players every now and then chase rings and take less money to chase rings, but he already won. So he doesn't need another chance. He doesn't need another Super Bowl. I'm sure he would like one. But I can't say he feels like the favorite there. Let's get back, Marty, to especially on quarterbacks here. Two teams that I have in the short term that no need to improve this year, but let's look down the road here. Correct me if I'm wrong on these. The New York Giants. Jaxson Dart year 2. John Harbaugh year 1 with the Giants. Is Jaxson Dart in the okay, we're set for short term, or do you think the Giants will look elsewhere soon enough?
Yeah, I mean, let's say what we got this year. So yeah, short term for this year. Do they need depth at the position? I would think so. I think that the building loves Jaxson Dart over there. Everybody thinks he's going to be the answer to their QB1 questions. But again, you haven't seen him for a whole season. hold up. And one of the biggest concerns we talked about during the year is he's got to learn to slide and not get hit as much. So durability is also a question with him. But if he comes out and plays with his skill set that he showed in college and last year, I think that he will end up being their franchise quarterback, but it's too early to designate him as that.
The last team I should say I have on maybe short term, but also could be must improve is the Indianapolis Colts. What are they doing quarterback? Daniel Jones just presumed coming back this year to be their starter?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, with the injury and they certainly committed to him. So I think so, but that's a place where you're saying, okay, do they really have the answer or do they think they had the answer? And I think that's one place you have to still put that. Yeah. Whether it's short term or need one, it's kind of in between those two. But certainly there's no answer that you're comfortable saying it's a long-term solution right now.
By the way, he is a free agent, so he can free to sign anywhere. I think people assumed he'd come back to Indianapolis and maybe they get him on a nicer deal because he ends up being cheaper because of the injury. So that's the list of the teams kind of sort of in short term. Let's talk now, Marty, about teams that need quarterbacks now. So before we get there, just quickly on the draft, because we're going to talk about some of these teams that might need to draft a quarterback. So as of right now, we have one first-round quarterback that we think is for sure, and that's Francisco Mendoza, Indiana's quarterback. He's going number 1 overall. I think there's no concerns there about him in the NFL. Then we get to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, man. I don't know, Marty. I have no idea. Ty Simpson from Alabama, Nussmeier from LSU. Chambliss is going back to Ole Miss, it appears. You like a kid from North Dakota State. It does feel like this is a terrible, terrible draft if you need an answer for long-term quarterback.
Yeah, it's certainly not deep. And to me right now I haven't watched everybody, but right now it seems like that Mendoza would be the only first-round pick. Now, you never know. Teams like somebody and move up and get them. But this does not seem to be a very deep year at quarterback, and it's hard to find one at free agency. So that's my point is when we're going through and saying these guys aren't good enough, who is better? Who's going to replace them? That's what you have to decide.
So teams that need a quarterback, the Vegas Raiders, they're going to draft Mendoza 1 overall. It's done deal, right? They're not trading this. Someone offers you 3 first-round picks. You're not trading them, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Next up,
I don't think so.
Number 2 pick in the draft, the New York Jets. This question has been asked now for 45 years about quarterback for the New York Jets. We'll continue to ask it again for long-term solution for that position, Marty. What do the Jets do, man? Again, the list of free agent quarterbacks is not great. Right now, it's Daniel Jones, Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Mariota, Malik Willis, Taylor, Wilson, Flacco. Let's talk about Derek Carr here, who's under contract with the Saints, so he'll have to be traded to a team. So he's probably in this category for free agent quarterbacks as well. Potentially Kyler Murray and Tua added to this list. But if you're the Jets, what are you doing this year? I think you're just sort of having to suck it up one more year, I guess. But Aaron Glenn's not going to want that. He's not going to want to suck for one more season, Marty.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about free agency. I think Malik Willis is a really good target, at least somebody to bring in and interview. I do think that I've heard that he's on Miami's list, and with the connections there at Green Bay, I would have to make them the favorite. And then you hear Kirk Cousins is probably going to be released from Atlanta, but it sounds like the Vikings might be in the lead to get him, and that would make sense with Kevin O'Connell. If I'm the New York Jets, I don't know where. I mean, San Francisco has Mac Jones with another year. They're saying they're not going to trade him. If somebody comes in with something that they can't refuse, I guess they would not. But the 49ers feel like they're in a really good spot with 2 quarterbacks there that they like. So, that's the problem. You get to the second pick in the draft, and what are your options at quarterback if you don't have one? And that's really what makes it so hard to win in this league, because when you don't have one, you're just climbing uphill all year.
So I want to talk about Malik Willis quickly. You mentioned him. So there's sort of two categories of free agent quarterbacks, right? There's sort of that 3-year deal for 30 to 35, the Darnold deal, right? The Geno Smith deal, where you get maybe 2 years guaranteed, and it's a lower end start, lower of the spectrum. And then there's the $55 million a year quarterback. Are you paying that for Malik Willis, or are you paying the $30 million a year for him?
30 makes me shiver, but yeah. Even 30 cents chills down my back. I guess once you do this, it sticks with you. So but I just, Geoff, again, this goes back to what I was talking about with CJ Stroud is kind of like Malik Willis coming out. Now, I wouldn't have drafted him because he needed time. He was a running back, went to Liberty and transferred from Auburn. He's got a great story, but boy, does he have a unique skill set, Geoff. I mean, he really does. And he's a passer for a guy who can make plays with his legs, and he keeps his eyes downfield now. I mean, from what I saw from Green Bay, this time in the NFL has really helped him, and I think his game has really skyrocketed. So I'd see him as a player that can come in and take over the starting job right away, and really, be your future. So we'll see if I'm right or not. But he would be the number one guy if I needed a quarterback. I would go aggressively after him. So to answer your previous question, he probably gets more than 30 if there's 2 or 3 guys in the league that feel like I do that want to go aggressively after him. It only takes one, but if you got 2, you're going to get a lot more money.
Yeah, I'm curious at this list of who makes that move. Maybe the Jets feel desperate enough to make that move. Maybe other teams on this list decide to do that. Very quickly here, the Miami Dolphins are going to get rid of Tua. We believe they'll get rid of Tua. This is a reset year for the Dolphins, right? We agree on that. Like, this is a 4-13 type season to get ready for the draft in 2027. Does that feel right for the Dolphins?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, they need a year. They need a year to build. But again, now if they get Malik Willis and he comes in, who knows how quickly they can.
Are you hearing they're one of the teams for the one Malik Willis, you think?
Yes, and it wouldn't make sense. But because John Eric Sullivan and Hafley both are coming from Green Bay, so they know him.
That forgot about that importance of that connection. So that's actually a good point. They've seen him in practice. They feel good about him, man. That shivers for you, shivers for me too. I would probably get on the internet and say something dumb about that deal and then have to backtrack like I did with Sam Darnold at some point. But we'll find out. Let's talk more about teams that need quarterbacks and touch on a little NFL news. Do that next. GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to GM Shuffle here. Please leave us comments on YouTube. I'm answering them. Marty, we're going to get him a YouTube account. Set him up with a pro. I'm not sure Marty wants to be a commenter, but we'll get a burner account, maybe comments. Marty. We'll get Marty a burner account, and we'll allow him to comment. But I'm there. Schwartz 74. That's me. So if you see me comment, that actually is me. So please, love the interaction there. We're getting on YouTube, and subscribing is free. Just press that subscribe button. Really helps out the podcast. If you're listening to segment 4 of the 1 hour, you like our podcast, hit subscribe, leave us a comment, go on to your favorite podcast platform of choice, leave us a 5-star review as well. Finishing up our topic about quarterbacks and who must improve. The Cleveland Browns, Marty, Todd Monken, new head coach, obviously Dylan Gabriel and Shazier Sanders on the roster. Neither feel like, honestly, long-term solutions for that position. What do the Browns do?
That's a good question. I mean, again, we're talking about what's out there. Where does Deshaun Watson stand? Do they ever try to bring him back in the fold and give him a chance? I think that Shador, is a kid who you can develop, but I'm not sure that he is ready now or will ever ready be a top level starter in this league. So I think they have to figure out, number one, how they feel about the quarterbacks they have in house. That's number one. You need to go through, you need to ask the coaches, the personnel people, write reports on them and just see how everybody feels about those three. If you make the decision that you have to go out and get one, then it's probably a case where you're deciding, okay, we have to get through this year and then look in 27, because unless we come up with an answer that nobody else sees, it's going to be hard to fill that void this year.
Marty, I'm gonna make you guess. What was the last year Deshaun Watson was any good at football?
17.
Yes. What year? I mean, it's 2020. 2020.
20?
Yeah.
Long time. Long time.
I don't know how you rely on him if you're the Browns. Like, you might not have your choice because his contract. Look, I think if he's healthy, Sanders and Gabriel are healthy, Watson's probably the best out of that group, Marty. The guy's been getting in forever.
Yeah. And, has this time helped him? I don't know. None of them are really good. It's not like, you're not talking about A+ scenarios here, but they're getting back to this whole discussion. It is really easy for us to go down and say they need one, they need one, they need one. But my question as general manager would be, well, that's great. Everybody needs one. Where are they coming from? And I think right now, we talked really early in the year about the 24 draft, and that basically put out 6 quarterbacks in the first round that, some have worked, some will not work out, but at least there was a pool there of 6 guys that, there were 6 teams that thought, maybe we have the guy long term. Probably turns out that it's 3 or 4 of them have it, but you can't make a list like that right now. And again, I haven't finished going through the whole quarterback class in the draft, but there's not a lot of high picks right now. And so if you need a quarterback desperately this year, it's going to be hard to find.
I'm with you there. All right, 2 other ones that are pretty interesting here because I think they have options, but curious what you think here. The Pittsburgh Steelers. So they hire Mike McCarthy, and there's talks about bringing Aaron Rodgers back. I thought him and McCarthy didn't get along, but it does sound like they got along fine to play with each other again.
At the end, I think just like normal, Jeff, if you spend a lot of time at the end, it might have deteriorated a little bit, but they have great respect for each other. I know that from talking to Mike.
It does feel like the idea of Rodgers would be just to have something better than nothing at quarterback next season, right, Marty? Because just right now, we talk about all show. We talk about it for 50 minutes now. Not great options.
No. And I guess the one thing you can say Rodgers would do is get him to 27, but I just think, Jeff, the formula we always talked about, the perfect formula is if you hire a head coach and you need a quarterback, you draft that quarterback, you bring the quarterback in, and they can grow together. Right now with Mike McCarthy, and if Aaron Rodgers does come back, maybe they can get through 1 year, but where do you go from there? So I think that, it's as great as Aaron Rodgers is. I think that you look at the Steelers and you say, okay, what's your plan for the future at the position? And I don't know what that is. And this year, it's not bad. Listen, if you want to bring Aaron Rodgers in and get you through another year and get you to a good draftable year where there's, options at quarterback, and maybe you are at a higher level and have a better pick. But I think that's the question they have to answer is, how are we building this team for the future?
Yeah. All right, we saved the most fun for last, maybe, Marty. The Minnesota Vikings. All right, cost himself the general manager. Their former quarterback is now Super Bowl champion. JJ McCarthy, to me, Marty, has not even played enough to really know, to honestly know. Now, in the building, they might know, right? Kevin O'Connell sees him every day at practice, sees him in the meeting room. What is Minnesota? Are they in the 3 categories, right? Need to improve, team set for the short term, team set for long term. Where do they fit in this category for you right now?
any of the three. And I'll tell you why. This is this is the easiest question to answer, I think, the way it's going to work out. And listen, I have heard that there's questions about McCarthy at the Vikings. I think, obviously, the one thing I've learned is the more you don't play, the more you get injured and on the sidelines, the more questions people are going to have about you. So he's going through that, and they have to find out about him. But I would bet money if there were odds. I think Kirk Cousins ends up here with Kevin O'Connell, and I think it's a perfect fit. I think the Vikings will be a factor next year if it happens, because their defense is very good and can get better if the offense is playing better. So I think what you see from the Vikings right now is Cousins and then McCarthy battling it out, and maybe Cousins starts.
I do feel like if you are the Vikings, don't you have to give? I guess if you bring Cousins in, he would know the offense. It probably doesn't need first team reps. You just give him all to McCarthy, right? And then if it just doesn't work out, you can go to Cousins, right? Like I think McCarthy needs the reps, right? Like you can't just, in my opinion, get split reps, right? With the ones you just trust Cousins knows what to do eventually. If he has to play, you give McCarthy all the reps, you start splitting reps immediately.
Well, that's the tricky part about this thing is does Cousins go to a team that doesn't say you're going to start? I think he goes to the Vikings because Kevin O'Connell says you're going to be my starter. Now, if he's happy with going to be a backup, here's a curveball for you. Kyle Shanahan has loved Kirk Cousins his whole career. Would he ever bring Cousins in and as a 2 and then trade Mac Jones for a second-round pick? I mean, you could probably get that from Mac Jones right now because we've talked about that. People are looking for quarterbacks. I don't think that is going to happen. They said that's not going to happen, but I just know how much Kyle Shanahan thinks of Kirk Cousins. So that would be a second option, but I really do think he ends up with Minnesota.
More breaking news. I don't know if breaking is the right word, but the Dolphins are releasing all their players today. Westbrook-Ikhine and James Daniels have been released, so it feels like today's show is just covering the Dolphins transactions, but they are officially cleaning house with a new general manager and new head coach. Marty, the Buffalo Bills hired John Fox, former coach that you hired. He has coached in Super Bowls before. He was my head coach for 3 years with the Panthers as essentially a senior advisor, correct? I have that right?
Yes.
Senior advisor?
Yes.
So the reason why this hire makes sense to me, you have a first-time head coach in Joe Brady, and you have Brandon Beane who trusts John Fox. So you have someone in the building who can help Joe Brady learn to be a head coach. And while Joe Brady gets to call the offense, John can help with the defense, obviously. This feels like one of those hires where you're hiring a mentor for Joe Brady.
I think this is a fantastic hire. Number one, knowing John Fox, knowing Joe Brady, their personalities get together. John can bring the experience that comes from, not many guys out there, head coach of 3 NFL teams. So he can help Joe with the head coach, administrative advice type of thing. He can also help him to not get too deep in the woods and that stuff. Tell people to have people manage that. But John is he's an excellent defensive coach. He'll help on the defensive side of the ball. And as a coach, I think he's probably the best evaluator coaching-wise I've ever been around. He knows talent. He knows the skill sets. He's the guy that says, listen, everybody on this draft board can play. It's, the fastest guys are up top and the biggest guys are up top and the other guys are lower. But he is a very good evaluator. He's a very good defensive coach. He's a great guy with a good personality. I think this is going to help the Bills a lot.
Marty, as we prepare for our Combine show next week, as you prepare for the Combine as a general manager, who makes your dinner reservations for you guys? Is it you or your secretary? Like who makes sure you get that steak at San Elmo's?
You have no chance to get to dinner. The closest you get to dinner is walking by the window at Elmo's and waving all the head coaches in there eating dinner while you're rushing to get to your 1,000th interview of the week. It's just that the Combine is there is no chance, no time for dinner. You're running between workouts, interviews, all that stuff. You're done. You're toast.
No chance to enjoy a nice steak in Indianapolis. One year we did the show from Indy.
You get is toast. That's the only thing you get to eat at Indy is toast, really, as a general manager.
Next year, I'd love to do the show with you from Indianapolis. That'll be so much fun here. Next week, we'll talk about the scouting combine, sort of the preparation that goes behind the scenes and everything that players have to do, coaches, front office person have to do. We'll talk next week about NFL offenses. Where do teams go in the free agency market? Who has to target in the draft? Who needs a piece or two to make themselves better? How have you all covered this offseason here at the GM Shuffle? Please rate, review, subscribe. Again, tell us nothing to subscribe on YouTube for us. Have a great week, guys. We'll talk to you next Monday. Take care, everybody.